Welcome to the Driving GSA Sales webinar series. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Real quick, I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the CEO of isiFederal. We're located here in Maryland, just outside of D.C. And also with me is the founder of CapturePlanning.com and Prop Library. Say hey, Carl.
Hello, everybody.
Excellent. Good. Welcome. So if you have any questions, real quick on the housekeeping side, if you have any questions, on the right-hand side you have this panel that pops out. You can go in and you can create a chat, or you can put questions in the bottom. Most importantly, make sure you enter your audio pin, which is on that right side under audio, so that we can unmute you in the event that we want to have some dialogue. And we do want to have some dialogue today because we're going to be doing some things a little bit different, getting into some very specific components. About the sponsors, being a little selfish for a minute, we are business development specialists. We help bridge the gap between small businesses and medium-sized businesses so they can compete for federal opportunities. We provide services from just doing your fundamental research all the way through to feet on the street in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area, where we're representing clients and we look and smell like you when we go in. We carry our business cards that have our name on your business cards, so we look like you. CapturePlanning.com, they help companies learn how to create winning proposals and capture business. Tell them a little bit about CapturePlanning.com, Carl.
Sure. What we do is publish materials that show people how to do things, like all the steps involved in writing a proposal or pursuing a lead. And then we've taken all of the material from CapturePlanning.com and turned it into a just-in-time tool that we call Prop Library. So you have it both in book form as well as in an online, ready-to-go format.
That's excellent. And if you haven't been to CapturePlanning.com and PropLibrary.com, please go there, because they are absolutely. Carl gives away so much free stuff that can really help you get positioned and understand what's happening from an RFP standpoint. And what I love about Carl and his group and our group is, while we overlap in some areas, our overlap really is in how we go and influence things to be able to make things work. And we're going to be talking about some of that today. Another one of the sponsors is Halts, Boozes, and Pal. If you have a CPA firm that doesn't understand the federal business, I highly recommend that you get in touch with them, because they are very good at the compliance components and making sure that you're in line with what you need to do. Real quick, about this seminar series, it is exclusive to GSA schedule holders. Every once in a while somebody pops in who's not, but really, we're identifying obstacles to your success, helping you gain exposure into the federal market, giving you some insider information and some techniques, which you'll learn today. Hopefully, you'll really come to appreciate what we're doing today, and access to resources, including what Carl and I do, as well as other folks. If we can help you connect the dots, we will do that for you. So why are we all here today? The top needs of GSA schedule holders, and I've been talking to a bunch of folks, is my contract is underperforming and I'm in danger of losing it. We have several clients that are in this position right now. They're coming on board for us to be able to help them. They can't find the right people. This is huge in the federal space, because it's so convoluted out there, and it's very difficult to get to the right people. And then breaking through that barrier. There's some things that are set up for you as you're doing your pursuit that are actually counterintuitive to the pursuit, and we're going to be talking about some of that too. The buyers won't talk to you, and you just simply don't understand the federal marketplace. You've done the GSA schedule stuff, but it's so complicated, so different than what's out there in the commercial space, and I can appreciate that, because I come from the commercial space, and I know exactly what you're up against for being able to be able to attack that. There's two particular things. We ask a whole bunch of folks about this would be the best webinar ever, and Richard Kaiser, I don't know if Richard's posted up here yet, but this is one of the best. I was handed sales, not leads, not asking for too much here. This one cracked me up, so I had to put it up there just because of that. Raphael wanted to increase his exposure to the federal government. Mike Huey with Finish Line Floors, how to get written into the scope. Very, very good question and very good comment. Mary Lockler, how to learn to win more business. Bruce Mitchell from Pods, how do I best promote our GSA schedule to the federal government. Same kind of thing. Everybody's kind of going down that road. Michael Mellon, I don't know, Michael, how to pronounce his last name. I don't know if you're here, Michael. Hopefully you are. I shot over an email because we're going to be talking about this particular thing. Let me see if he posted yet, and I'll give him a shout out if he has. I do not see him on board just yet. So if he does post, whoops. But that was one of the ones. Info is new and revealing. I'm hoping that he does come. We're going to break two of these things down. First of all, if you're handled sales and not leads, not asking for too much here, I hate to be the bearer of the cold, hard truth, but federal business development is hard work. It takes a lot of time and is expensive. So, and if it was fast, easy, and cheap, everybody would be able to do it. And that's why it's so important for you to get your hands around what this market looks like, so that you can develop your GSA schedule into a top-performing vehicle. So we're going to give you the next best thing to those sales on a silver platter, is to help you gain influence, to gain access, to get ahead of the RFP process, to leverage your relationships, find winnable opportunities. These are the things that are most important. And I'm hoping I'm going to make somebody else the champion for this if Mike doesn't show up here. But I really want to know if we meet this grade today, because we're going to be doing some things. We're going to be talking about some of the secret sauce that we use here at isiFederal, and I know that Carl's going to be talking about some of his own secret sauce. But we're going to be talking about how you can be relevant and stay relevant to the people that are buying what you sell. Specifically, we're going to be talking about using executive and procurement briefings to be able to crack that code, to be able to get through that door, and start that dialogue in a different way, instead of just showing up, knocking on the door, picking up the phone and saying, hello, we do this, that, and the other thing, and they just really don't care. So being able to utilize this as a tool because of how it operates and the way that it works. We're going to show you what we do, exactly what we do, how we do it, and what you can expect as far as the results of those things and the magic that happens because of using executive and procurement briefings. Some of the other things that you're going to see from Carl is his secret sauce in gaining a competitive advantage. This is, we tie in so nicely and weave in so nicely as we work together, because Carl's responsible for being the response, creating those highly effective RFP responses so that you can be considered and you can win. Even if there's an incumbent, you can win. And if you want to talk about this for just a second, Carl, we're going to get back to it later, but I'll definitely, if you want to talk about how you, about that process real quick.
Sure. And let me start by saying that, yes, it is definitely possible to steal things away from the incumbent. In fact, I get a lot of joy out of doing that. And it all has to do with the way the federal procurement process works. Okay, what ultimately decides whether you get the business is how your proposal scores. The government's not going to read your proposal; they're going to score your proposal. So if you have the right processes, both before the RFP is even written and then after the RFP is written, then you can submit a proposal that scores the highest, and you can outscore the incumbent.
And that's a beautiful thing. And we've experienced both sides, where we have effectively not paid attention to that and got beat. So I know that as an incumbent you can get beat, and also as a favored you can get beat. So step one here is to understand your market and all the pieces that are out there. How can you assemble these so that you can that you can get into this and be able to be effective in it? So to understand this, you have the administration that's running. It doesn't matter what agency you're talking about. Just pick any of them. And there's two different sides. There's a program side and there's a procurement side. Now, there's initiatives that are driven down from the administration into the program. Then the program folks pipe back up, hey, we have this need in order to be able to fulfill this initiative. Then we get a budget as it unfolds to be able to say, okay, you have this much to spend, X, Y, Z, over the course of the next year. There's a requirement that's established that gets thrown over the fence to procurement. There's costs that are funneled back up to the administration to say, hey, is this in line? And then finally, this gets approved. And sorry about these arrows things. I'm going to fix these for next time. But what happens is these folks get approval, and then you have a project that's been awarded. So the step 2 is to understand your buyer. There are 3 primary components of a federal business, of a federal contract. We call these decision clusters. 1, you start with your project manager or your program manager on the program side. You have your technical representative, and then you have your contracting officer. There's a project that is formed around this that is good for you. And each one of these folks have different roles, different needs, different buying motives, and different reasons for making decisions. This is really important for you to understand, because if you're pitching them the wrong thing the wrong way, you're just going to be banging your head against the wall. And one of the most important things that you'll see here is none of these folks are in the small business or the liaison side. And it's not revolving around what you would be able to do with monitoring. These folks get together and they are part of a decision process. Let's talk about each one of these folks and what their roles are and how they operate. First, the project manager or program manager is driving the initiative. Remember, you have an initiative that comes down from above in the administration. Some of these are piped down from the President of the United States or Congress, so these get funneled right into what's necessary for these agencies to be able to, for what their operation is going to be for that particular year. And you'll see things like green. Green is still big right now, being able to save some money, cloud computing, security. Some of these are politically motivated or politically driven. Think about the healthcare components that are being driven down right now on top of these folks. They're responsible for looking for new ideas and new technologies out there. If you have those types of things, these are the people that are more likely to be able to be influenced by that. But they can all be influenced in some form or fashion. That's one thing that Carl said before is being able to influence that process and the scope, being able to influence the scope, the requirements, and the capabilities that are required in order to be able to fulfill this. They want to get the job done right, and your main job, their key buying motive is to help them look good. The technical representative, they're busy. They usually report to the PM, but their authority kind of comes for this from the contracting officer, and they're bridging the gap, because you'll find that the contracting officers really don't know what they're after as far as especially the details of something like that, of this type of procurement. So they're generally risk averse. They don't want to try new things all that often. They assist in assembling the technical requirements, which goes back to reflect against the government standards, identifying the similar purchases maybe from their own agency or other agencies that have done something like that, looking for particular certifications that are required for this, ISO certifications or some kind of technical certification that comes from some authority out there. They assist in assembling the mandatory requirements, and they help to determine the requirements that are necessary. And again, your job is to help them look good, because they're kind of in the program side. Now, the contracting officer, they're busy. A lot of these folks are really busy. They got piles and piles of things on their desk. They will not teach you how to do business with the federal government. This is why you start to get some of those barriers where you're kind of asking them for help, and they're like, look, I don't have time for you. And that happens. They're definitely risk averse. They don't want to try new things. They are experts in moving paper, and this is not to diminish their job. This is to show you the key difference in their decision-making process. They're buying pencils and pens and computers and phones and planes. They're buying everything. So as they're doing these things, their job is to get this stuff into a procurement vehicle, and Carl's going to talk about this a little bit too, where they're going to try to figure out how to develop the contract documents. They're going to select the purchasing mechanism, and they may even administer post-award, but pre-award, this is their primary focus is to assemble this contract information. They want the fastest way to purchase, and here's the two key things. Easy is good, and their core buying motive, this is a human buying motive all the way around, but make them feel valued. Make them feel like they're important. That's what's, again, if you just follow this, make it easy for them. That's your GSA schedule potentially, but there's other contract vehicles that you can utilize. You could utilize a blanket purchase agreement with your GSA schedule if they want to, but make it easy for them to be able to procure from you. Any questions about the people that are involved here? I'm just going to scroll down over here and make sure there's nobody that's raising their hand. You can raise your hand on the right-hand side again. Make sure that you have your PIN fired in there so that we can unmute you if you want to talk. Okay, nobody's asking questions about that. Must have done a good job on that one. Hold on one second. Man, this thing is driving me nuts. Step 3 is to find your key decision makers. We're not going to go too much into this today. We do have a process for being able to find those key decision makers and go after them. I'm just a real high-level overview. What we use our own intelligence that we do for each one of our clients to find the people that are responsible. We get their contact information, their phone numbers, their emails, their addresses, so that we can go after them. And this information is not anywhere else. You just can't go and get it. There's no database with it, and there's no way to tie it back to what you do, except for the process that we use. And that's we do that in the Federal Marketing Essentials package that you can check out on isiFederal.com and also on Prop Library if you go there. So you find out that there's 642 buyers for what you sell. The question is, how would you go after them? How can you be relevant to them, and how can you stay relevant for them so that they remember who you are when the time is right? And how can you gain influence for that? So step 4 is the plan. And we're not going to go too much into the plan, but that you got to have a plan to go out after these folks. And step 5 is go get them. And that's the process that we're going to be talking about today. And specifically today, we're going to be talking about the secret sauce that we talked about before, executive and procurement briefings. We utilize executive and procurement briefings to be able to draw people in and help them understand what our clients do. What this does, this process alone provides for 4 to 12 touches. That means that we're touching these people 4 to 12 times in this process alone, and it gives you a reason to call them and invite them to a particular event. Most people like to receive an invitation. It makes them feel important, and most people like to learn new things. And if you can do these things, you're starting to build that value. You're starting to value those folks on both sides. There's 2 pieces here. One's the executive briefing that kind of goes on the program side, and the other is the procurement briefing, which we'll get to in a minute. So first, you're going to decide on your approach. What is your objective in these? Is this going to be a broad marketing to do multiple executives and are you going to be drawing them into a physical location, or are you going to be drawing them into a virtual location? You can do both, and you can be very effective in that. It can be niche marketing if you have a specific agency that you want to go after, or a specific product offering, or if it's IT security oriented and you're going to drive down into the IT security market, or if you're going to be broad IT, or that kind of thing. So you're going to figure out what your approach is. That goes back to your plan, but once you understand what you're doing, you define your approach for this, and you define whether it's going to be to a person, to an agency, or opportunity-specific presentation. So let's say, for instance, we just did one for cloud computing the other day. So when we did this, we reached out to the procurement folks, but we also wanted to tie in the IT people. Why? Because we wanted to make sure that we were pulling in some of the folks from the program side too. So we kind of even made these things cross-pollinate. And can these be combined? Can you combine a procurement briefing and an executive briefing? Yes, but you have to be careful, because if you start talking about super technical things to a procurement individual, they're going to just, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're going to fall off the chair. So you can't do that. But yes, you can combine these, and in fact, we recommend that you do some combined so that you can get some of that insight back and forth. So the first thing is to understand your audience, get their key buying motives. Remember, every one of these people have different buying motives, including personal buying motives for why they do things. You want to tie these back into the initiatives that are being driven down. Anytime you're talking about this, initiatives really do matter, because that's what they're hearing every day, is how are we going to meet this initiative? How are we doing with that initiative? If it's green, if it's cloud, if it's security, whatever it happens to be. Leverage their known pain points in your presentation. Tell them what's happening typically in the marketplace, and then differentiate yourself from that. So you're going to say, this is what you see out there from everybody else. Here's our key differentiator. You know what the difference is? You have all these different people that are providing, they're trying to push different things on you. We're vendor agnostic, or we have this particular niche product that we can offer to you that to be able to help you in a different way than anybody else in the marketplace. And then build your value as an expert. Just the fact that you're doing an executive briefing and you call it that and you run it like an education session as opposed to a sales pitch all the time, that creates this expert status, kind of sort of like what we're doing right now. In a procurement briefing, so you have procurement officers that, again, their job is to move that paper. This can be, actually, it's 4 to 12 touches. You put out an invite, you have a second invite, you have a personal phone invite message, a personal email invite. So here you can call them up on you send out this blast email, you send out a second blast, and then you pick up the phone and you're inviting these people. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that could be involved in this for you. So you need to have a plan to go after that. But you call up these people, you do a personal invite, you remind them, hey, it's tomorrow, and then you have the event itself, and then you have an event follow-up email. So you have 8 touches right here if you do an event follow-up call as well. So here's where you start to have that. Now, if you're using something like our webinar that we're doing right now, you know that once you sign up, you're getting reminders from the event itself, and you're also getting reminders potentially from us to be able to say, hey, here, this is coming up. We generally don't do a whole lot of that with this because we want to leave you guys alone. If you're interested in what we do, that's one thing, but being able to have this as a forum for you to create this. So understanding your audience, again, very important as you understand your audience to understand their key buying motives. One side you had the procurement people, the other side, well, you had your executives, the other side you have your procurement people, and understand those. Provide them with a high-level overview. Understand what they're facing. First, get in their head for what they do every day. They're sitting there every day and they're trying to procure things. Most of us as entrepreneurs and salespeople and folks that are trying to build business in the government, it makes our head spin how they could do what they do. And it really is impressive to me, actually, because I could not do what they do. So give them practical examples that they can understand. Again, we did this cloud computing thing, so we weren't talking about the bits and bytes. We were way high level. Hey, have you ever used Amazon.com? Do you use online banking? These are ways to be able to say, okay, here are some examples that you use every day or potentially use every day to be able to say these are cloud computing examples, where they can start to understand how they can interface with this technology or something that's more complicated that they're really not going to get a full grasp on, nor do they want to. They really don't want to know what you do in the details. They don't want to get into the details of what makes you so good and all the components. They just want to know, how can I, can you make me a little smarter about this, and how can I procure it? Here's one that's really critical. Give them what to watch out for so that they can cover their butts. So if you do that and say, hey, if you watch out for this kind of thing because they're kind of shady or this over here, and you start to build up your not bringing down any particular vendor or any particular competitor, because you don't want to do that. But here's what to watch out for just in case. And then those things start to think about that. Most important, pump the procurement vehicles of how they can procure. Give them your contact information as well as documents and links so that they can go and do some research on their own. And some of these, I'll give you some super benefits in a minute. To set these up, when you're doing a procurement briefing, you need to have some sort of online mechanism, because right now, and this really feeds into this right now, because you have sequestration that's happening, budget cuts, all the components, all these pieces that are affecting their world. So they're not going to be going to places like they used to. In fact, some of the agencies have totally cut travel. So they're not going to be going to the trade shows. They're not going to be going to these training sessions. So this is an acceptable and widely used now and growing way to be able to communicate. So you're kind of feeding into one of their key objective is being able to get information without having to go out for it and be able to make their budget. And another thing is make sure you can record their audio screen, just like we're doing right now. We're going to post this on YouTube later, and this is the type of thing that you can record the screens and the audio. You need to have a tracking mechanism in order to be able to say, okay, here's the people that signed up. So use a CRM. We use a CRM or an Excel spreadsheet. If you're not familiar with those, get familiar with how those work, the CRM especially, because you really want to be able to have the ability to track these people. You need some sort of email system or program, because you're going to be talking about hundreds of people that you're going to be sending this to, and you don't want to get yourself blacklisted, nor you also want to be able to track opens and things like that if possible. you're going to have email templates that apply to each level of this. For your initial introduction, your secondary introduction, your, hey, it's tomorrow, and then your follow-ups. And those need to be able to include the ability to have attachments or links with those. And then you're going to need some sort of YouTube account that's corporate-oriented. And this is so that you, after you're done, you can have your recording, you can post it up there, and you can show people what you did. And make sure that it's verified, because if it's not verified, then you're going to have a limit on your time. So these are some of the details I'm going to get into. And it always helps to be HD capable, and YouTube is certainly HD capable for that. So one of the things about a procurement briefing is you want to make it look like what they're used to. So they get a whole bunch of stuff every day. So the more you make it look like what they do, then the more responses you're going to get. Here's an extra bonus. Use terms like government-wide. Like your purchasing vehicle, by the way, your GSA schedule is a government-wide purchasing vehicle. You know, this is a government-wide procurement briefing for XYZ. Or you can use word like interagency. I love this one because it's an interagency procurement. So people from different agencies come, and they have the ability to do that. And you can use agency-wide, or if you're going into a niche market, or if you're trying to focus on a particular group of people within an agency, you can say this is an agency focus. So again, utilize what they're used to seeing in that marketplace. So your procurement briefing goes, you create this, and you can kind of see how it looks. It's nothing sexy about it, right? This is what they see every day. They see this every day. It doesn't look sexy, nothing super graphics about it, but it just says, hey, this is the host, when it was, or when it's supposed to happen. We just did one, again, we just did one the other day. So when it is. Okay, so you have your invitation email that goes out. Who it's hosted by, the date and time. Make sure you include the time zone because there's folks all over the world. The overview is who should attend. This is an interagency procurement briefing that's scheduled for 30 minutes. Give them exactly what it's going to be, and it's directly to address blah, 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 and pursuant to Executive Order XYZ. Do your research and make sure that you're talking in their language. Give them a specific topic of what it is. That in this instance, it's virtualization and cloud computing. You give them a registration link so they can click on it. And then you give them the agenda. And that agenda should include a topical overview, and drop that down into minutes. Say, hey, we're going to have this for 5 minutes, this for 5 minutes, this for 10 minutes, this, whatever it happens to be. And those that included in that should be a company overview, not a complete sales pitch. Your agenda items, each individual agenda item that you're going to address. In this instance, we did virtualization and we did cloud computing, and the difference of those and how they feed off of each other and the components with that. And then they give you, then we give them the procurement options, which is your contract info. Then you get to your questions and answers. And this is the money place, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. Then you have your closing remarks, and you let them go. And you just keep it brief. Make sure you stay on the timeline. Do not go over the timeline. Say, hey, if there's any additional questions, then you can come back and you can ask us, or feel free to reach out to us. So you have your procurement briefing. Then we do an invitation follow-up invite, right? We mentioned it before. So, Mr. Smith, this is Joyce with so-and-so, and I'm calling to invite you to procurement briefing for cloud computing this next Tuesday at 11 a.m. We'd really love to have you join us if you can make it. I can send you an email with a link, or I can sign you up right now if you like. Which would you prefer? This is killer, because they may say, hey, sign me up. And you just put their email in, bam, and they're signed up. But it gives it. You're touching this person personally. You're giving them the invite. And then, oh, by the way, one of the rules that we have is rule 1 for all of our folks on the phone is we don't leave messages, with the exception of a procurement briefing message, because we want them to get that. That gives us another touch. And, oh, by the way, I'm sending you a personal invitation email so that you can get this. Feel free to forward to your department and program folks. Give me a call if you have any questions. Very important. When you do this, it winds up getting legs, and it'll wind up going around their office. It'll wind up going to their whoever. If you're in facilities management, it'll go to facilities. If it goes to IT, it goes to IT. Wherever your world is, it will reach them. Excuse me. So, getting into the briefing itself and the presentation as we move through this. You have full control of the content. This is the beautiful thing of it. If it's in person, you still have full control of the content. You can steal things, or steer things. But I'm kind of assuming that some of this stuff is going to be done online because it's hard to get to people sometimes to assemble these groups, but you can assemble them online. So if you're doing this, you have full control of the content. This is a knowledge transfer model. It's not a sales model. Your job is not to get in there and pitch you, pitch you, pitch you. That is not the objective here. Do not sell them. Give them information, give them things to look out for, give them ways to be able to protect themselves and ways to be able to look for certifications, for instance. Give them content that's important to them. Again, these are procurement people, so what's most important to them? How they can procure it. The kind of things high level to look for, some of the things that should be included in the scope, and giving that for them. Present yourself as the source and the go-to expert. There's nothing better than people considering you an expert. That they come to you and they say, hey, what do you think of this? Because this is exactly what happens when you do these things. And you're out in front of these people all the time, and they have something that comes across their desk and say, you know what? You did a procurement brief, you did a briefing, or did something, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, and you mentioned that you did this. Is this something that you can help me with? Of course there is. So that's where, again, we wind up doing this, and I'll add just like this webinar. This is exactly what we do. This, what we're talking about right here, details that you can implement today and go after these folks and utilize this. So, about their needs. Keep it about their needs. Make it focused on their success, not your success. Again, not selling them, going after their needs. They can clearly see that they know their stuff, just like this webinar, and they can come to the conclusion, hey, these are my kind of guys. These are my kind of people. I want to do business with these folks. They're not just trying to sell me. They're trying to help me. Huge, huge, huge. And again, at the end of these, you have everybody saying, hey, really, thank you very much for hosting this for us. It was really good information. And you get great feedback from it. All right, any questions on the presentation itself or any of the components for these? Let me see. Now I'm going to turn this into why it's so important to have these questions and answer sessions for your briefing. I don't see any questions yet. Must be doing something right or people are falling asleep. One or the other, Carl, I don't know. But one of the biggest things that you can do is the power of your questions and answers. First, have a list of the questions that you want to answer. And those should be directly correlating to your key differentiators and also the market. So you take your market, your key differentiators, make sure that you're doing that. And ask those as part of the Q&A. Right now, I don't have any questions. People asking me questions about this. But if I want to feed a question, I can feed a question. Why? Because I'm in control of the content, and I'm in control of the questions and answer session. I can choose if I'm going to answer a question online, or I can choose if I'm going to answer it right here. And this is what's so critically important. And what is really a super bonus is make sure you ask yourself if you're going to be providing sample scopes of work. In part of this presentation, you can say, hey, are you going to be sending out samples of potential sample scopes of work that we could take a look at? We'd like to see. Again, make sure that's part of your presentation. Huge, huge, huge. Cannot discount that. All right. You did your you've done everything else. You did the introductions. You did everything. You've already touched them as many times as you can with phone calls and also invitations and email invitations. You did the presentation, and then so many people showed up. Now you have a recap to be able to send out with links to the presentation video, again, posting that to YouTube, the PowerPoint presentation itself. You may want to Adobe, pull that into an Adobe doc. What do you call that? Whatever that is, Acrobat. Your questions and answers, and these should be part of your response. Say, hey, we had some really good questions, and we want to put those Q&A right in the email. You can put that in the email as you do your follow-up email. Make sure that you're including your capabilities. Why? Because you reviewed that in that. All the rest of the documents reviewed. If you reviewed any of the executive orders, make sure you attach the executive order so they can see what the executive order looks like. Or if there's another initiative that's driven down by OPM or or somebody else. Make sure that any of the documents that you review, you attach, because that'll tell them that, hey, this is good information. Part of that also is your contract vehicles. Make sure that they know what your contract vehicles are, and also, because it was part of your Q&A, the sample scopes of work. Again, you cannot diminish the importance of these sample SOWs. It's one of the things that we really drive for all of our clients, to make sure that you have sample SOWs. All right, so you did your email follow-up. Now part of your campaign is following up by phone. Why? Because you get the opportunity to touch them again, and you don't want to waste this opportunity, because your context is following up for the webinar or the briefing. Here you have it. Were you able to attend? Did you get the link to the docs that we sent out and the links in order to be able to check that out? That's a yes or no question. If they did, that's great, and that's fine. If they didn't, hey, it gives you an opportunity to send them another email, another touch that you get to be able to get to them. And then you ask them, do you have anything else that you need from me right now? And they may say yes, they may say no, it's okay. Then the follow-up is, okay, great. I'll give you a call in a few weeks to check in just as usual. You're setting up your follow-up in 21. We do it in 21 to 30 days. Every 21 to 30 days, we're touching people. Why? Because if they're going to forget you. They're going to forget who you are, so you have to have a process for touching these people every 21 to 30 days. It just so happens that you could have touched them anywhere from 4 to 12 times in this span to be able to do this with the procurement briefing. That's the beauty of it. And if you know anything about marketing statistics, anything like that, any folks who are in the marketing world, you know that it comes from repetition. And you've hit them with repetition over the course of a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks or something. So this has all been revolving around the procurement briefing, and you can always go back to that as a source, a reference if they attended, and also to go back to them certainly in this timeline. Make sure that you're doing the follow-up by phone and hitting all those folks. You do this right. You do this process right. And they know who you are, they know what you do, they consider you an expert, they have sample scopes of work that favor you, they're glad to know you, and you've helped them learn something. Most importantly, they feel valued. Getting back to their core human need. They feel valued. You made them feel valued because of interacting with them. And the best part is, it doesn't even matter if they show up to see the webinar or the procurement briefing. Doesn't matter, because you're hitting them with the information beforehand, and they may get irritated. They may stop sending me this, stop sending this stuff. We had like 3 or 4 out of, I think it was 1,200 that we invited to the procurement briefing. We had 22, which is not bad, right? 22 people that are responsible for purchasing cloud computing and virtualization, including IT professionals as well as procurement people, on that call. And I got compliments from IT. I got compliments from the folks in procurement, because I was helping them understand, high level. Wasn't getting into the weeds, high level. And the IT folks said, thanks for doing that, because a lot of times they don't understand, we don't have time, and we're kind of in our niche. So. But it doesn't matter, because if they don't show up, you still touched them 12 times, or maybe 11 if they didn't come to the briefing. But you touched them that many times, and that helps you to be remembered. Okay, those are the details. Secret sauce for the wedding. Man, this cold is kicking my butt. Hang on one sec. We have a question here. One second. Let's see. Bruce asked the question, how do I find out who has purchased from my competition on GSA Schedule 48? Great question. And how do I find a list of facility managers within the federal, local, government, school, and university market? The local government, school, and university is not my thing. That we just do federal, so I'm not sure about that. The federal side, I can help you with. In fact, I know I can help you with that. The facility, as far as facility managers, are concerned, we could certainly find that out. And how do it's more important than just who purchased from your competition on Schedule 48. It's more important to find out who purchased all the way around. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can unmute you real quick. Hey, Bruce, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, nice to meet you. And tell me about you and your company. Who are you with?
Rolling Pods, the portable storage and moving company. And,
yes.
We've been trying to crack the code into the government market, especially on the federal level. And we've had some successes, but it also seems tough to crack the code when it comes to the fact that we only really have 2 products that we rent. And it's almost like we fit best as a subcontractor. Because when somebody wins an award like a contractor for renovation going on a base, we're perfect for the storage and moving. But we don't have the time to fill out the 100 pages of an RFQ that is dealing with just a storage container.
Right. I don't know why. I don't know why you don't have that kind of time, man.
Well, I mean, it's just fitting in that one line where basically it's the prime contractor that wins it.
You're absolutely correct. So, in your instance, and I'm going to take, if you'll stick with me to the end, we'll go through this as a particular component, because part of what everybody needs to do is know where they are in the food chain of a decision. In your instance, you're part of a GC component or an individual project component where you would be sub to the prime in most instances. Every once in a while you get a FEMA kind of thing where they need 1,000 of what you have just to put stuff in, right? So every once in a while you get a super mondo contract. So there's one avenue for that, being able to set yourself up so that your emergency response or whatever the heck it is, right? So that's one piece, and the other piece is the everyday components of what it is that you do, and part of that is your regular selling to the prime, which it would be the person that's responsible for that. So we will get to that because there's a subcomponent. In fact, I may take it offline altogether because we might not have time today to do that, but I'll get in touch with you and we'll talk about it individually, because there is a way to be able to, one, get that information to see who the people are that are winning that, because I think that's most important. It'd be very rare that they would include, they may get a price, or they may throw in, we know it's going to be $320 a month for this particular thing, or $800 or whatever it happens to be for your particular storage type thing. But that's a different sale than to the government itself, although I know that they do use storage units just like you have, and it's just a matter of being able, some of those are trailer oriented. They may put it in a trailer thing. So, but finally, I think your facilities management is really, really a good feeder, because they're people that would be responsible for having to put stuff someplace for a time, and I think that's a good play, as a matter of fact. And we do know some of those because ICMS is a client of ours, and they do facilities. They do facilities. We just did the intelligence for them, or the marketing components for them. So we'll talk. If it's okay, we'll talk about that. But great questions both. And yes, we can help you with all the folks that not only did schedule, what is it, 48 you said, and then but also the folks that are winning. Only about a third goes through GSA, so if that now. So if you're, we'll figure that out for you. But I appreciate that very much. We'll get in touch. So with that, let me see where we are here. Any other questions or comments? But we got to Bruce there, and many of you may have individual comments as well or questions. So please feel free to either raise your hand or type them in the chat box in the bottom. I don't think there's anything there. Nothing there. Okay, good. All right. So we do all of these things so that we can gain influence to get ahead of the RFP process, right? To leverage those relationships, to find winnable opportunities. And next up we have Carl Dixon, because he starts to talk about those, Bruce just mentioned about, 150 pages or whatever of RFP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this presentation over to my good friend Carl Dixon, and he will take it from here. I say he will. You there, Carl?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got the GoToMeeting handoff. Let me see if I
can
pick it up.
There you go.
All right.
There.
Okay, I'm just going to jump straight into it. What I want to talk about is gaining a competitive advantage by understanding your customer's acquisition process. So I want to take all those touch points that Dave, you described, and all those ingredients in your secret sauce for interacting with the customer, and then sync that up with all the steps that the customer has to go through in their acquisition process. First, let me introduce myself. Actually, you already introduced me, so I can just skip this. I'm Carl. Okay, I run CapturePlanning.com. If you really want to know about me, just go to the site. All right, I publish a lot of material, and you'll see it all there, and that's what really counts, not who I am. So skipping me. All right. Place where I want to start is when the magic moment happens that you're talking with the customer and they say to you, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, or hey, I've got this initiative, this government mandate that I've got to comply with and I have to do something about it, or we're thinking about, procuring something. That's you are in the right place at the right time. So now what are you going to do with that information? All right? What's the next step? The next step is not to try selling them. Okay, it's not to say, well, this is what I do. The next step is to gain an information advantage, because now they're talking to you about their needs, and you want to find out as much information as you can, because as they go through the process, that information will give you the advantage. You also want to start influencing the specification. Dave was talking about, having sample, SOW statements of work to give them. That's a great way to influence what they write into the RFP as requirements, because you want the requirements to be easy for you, difficult for your competitors. So when we talk about influence of specification, we're talking about making the RFP easy for you, hard for them. You also want to build that relationship, because you want more revelations. You want more information from this customer. You want to be able to discuss this opportunity with them over time. And you don't get there by hitting them over the head with your sales message first thing. Instead, there's a give and take. They need information from you, and you're getting information from them. The federal acquisition process means that the customer can't just go and buy something. So you have something, you want them to buy it. They can't just do it. Okay? Well, maybe if it's small, they can whip out a credit card, in which case you have to sell a whole lot of those things. But really, for most procurements, once they pass certain thresholds, then your customer and the government can't simply buy from you. Instead, they've got steps. There's paperwork. There's things that they have to do in order to initiate a procurement and the procurement process. And this is where all that federal procurement jargon kicks in, and part of what makes doing business with the federal government so difficult. Let me just jump into some examples. Okay. To start off, they have to decide what contract vehicle to use. Is it going to be GSA schedule, or is it going to be something else? Is it going to be an IDIQ, or is it going to be an RFP out on the street? That's a step in their process where they have to decide that. And there's a whole bunch of sub-steps and criteria that go into making that determination. They've also got to address budgets and funding. Okay, do they have a budget for this? And if they have a budget, that's not enough. It also has to be funded. Okay, and once again, there's a whole bunch of sub-steps in that process. Along the way, they've got to decide whether it's going to be a small business set-aside. Okay, is this going to be exclusively for small business? Is it going to be full and open, or is it going to be any of the dozen or two categories that sit in between those two extremes? They may have to perform market surveys because they know what they want, but they don't know where to get it. possibly, at the beginning. So they've got to find out, and so they actually have a process for that. It's not like they simply pick up the phone call and start calling people. Okay, they have to perform market surveys. They also, once they've decided, how they're going to procure it, then as they get closer and closer to issuing a solicitation, they have to figure out not just the statement of work, but also things like how are they going to evaluate the bidders, and what are the criteria going to be? Is it, these days that they're, very much concerned with price, but past performance is still a major consideration, as well as meeting the technical specifications. So along the way, they have to decide what weight to give each of the different evaluation criteria. And then they actually have to write the RFP. And that's a whole lot of work just to buy something. They got to go through all these steps. They also have to decide, once they've got the RFP, whether they're just going to send it out, or whether they're going to put it out as a draft, or maybe they'll issue a sources sought notice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The good news is that each of these steps is a chance for influence. You can influence what contract vehicle they select. You can make a recommendation by helping them figure out how to get what they want. If you provide what they want and you have a GSA schedule, then you may want to say, I recommend, you do this on the GSA schedule because, hey, I'm there and I can help you, but there are other people too, so it'll still be competitive, and that'll fulfill your process needs. Or you might want to help them with the budget. Okay, they've got to figure out, a lot of times they're buying things where they are not the expert. Okay, you're the expert. So they have to estimate, and set a budget for something that they know nothing about. You can help them with that. Figuring out what small business category it should go in, just like the contract vehicle. You might want it to go in a particular category, or you might want it to avoid a particular category. Either way, you want to influence it in the direction that works for you. The evaluation criteria, same thing. This is a chance to tell them what matters about what they're trying to buy so that they can select the best vendor. And if you, along the way, are helping educate them about what matters, you can point them to things where you're strong, your competitors are weak, and turn that into something that they evaluate when they receive the proposals. That's what providing a sample statement of work is all about, is making sure that the requirements are easy for you, difficult for your competitors. If they issue a draft RFP or sources sought, okay, first off, you can influence whether they issue one, but if they do, that's another chance to respond to the draft and make recommendations for changes. Thing to remember, though, is that timing is everything. If you go in too early and give them information, you give them the sample statement of work before they've decided what the contract vehicle is going to be, they might not be able to act on it. Okay? If you give it to them before they've decided what they're going to do, then it's not like they're going to save it and remember it and come back to it when they're ready to address that issue. No, if you give it to them too early, it might just go into the void. But if you're too late with the information, they're not going to backtrack. Okay, so if you come in after the statement of work's written with a sample statement of work, it's too late. They're not going to go back and rewrite the statement of work they just wrote. So you need to get there at just the right time. Also, if you're too late, you may reach the point where all of the discussions have to be in the public domain, so they might not even talk to you. Most of the mistakes people make are being too late with things. Coming in once the RFP's on the street, trying to get changes made, it's just not going to happen. All right. And if you do come in too late, somebody else probably already got there first, somebody had with better timing, okay, and now you're shut out. Somebody else is influencing the RFP, and you've got to play their game instead of the other way around. So what you need to do is perfect your timing. And the way you do that, first off, is to know what their acquisition process is. Know what all the steps and sub-steps are. The good news is that most of this is publicly available. You can not only go to their website and find out what their acquisition policies are, you can probably download the training materials that they use for their own acquisition staff. That will tell you what vehicles they prefer. It will tell you what criteria they use to make decisions about which vehicles to use. It'll tell you how they go about establishing the evaluation criteria. It'll tell you exactly what you need to know, and it will tell you when you need to act on it. So that when you're engaging with the customer, you can find out what step they're on. How far into the process are they? What decisions have they already made? And then you will know what comes next. Okay? So find out what step they're on, and then help them take the next step. That's the perfect timing. When you can say, okay, the next problem you need to solve is to make this decision, or the next problem you need to solve is to create a draft RFP, or the next problem you need to solve. That's where you want them working with you to solve their problem, because they got all these steps that they need to go through, and they're not the experts in what they're buying most of the time. So they're really open to input and need help in order to complete the process. They just need that help to fit in with how their acquisition process works. So helping them with their process means, first off, having a process of your own. Okay, it's not just simply a matter of calling them and making contact. That might be the first step, but it's a step in a process that where you need to for example, before that contact, have looked up their acquisition process so that when you interact with them, you can do the kind of things that I'm describing. So you need a process of your own in order to guide them through their process. You need to be able to track progress, so that you're not simply calling them up out of the blue, but you're calling them up synchronized to the things that they're trying to do in order to execute their process. It also means that you need to get into position to win, because that's what we're really trying to do with all of this RFP influence and providing them with information and making contact with them. It's about making sure that you have an information advantage. Okay, that's how you get into position to win. You know more about their preferences, more about what they're trying to do, and you have influenced the specifications so that you've turned your information advantage into a competitive advantage. Okay, and then you just need to create a proposal that reflects it. The proposal is what's going to close the deal for you. Okay, so you want your proposal to show that you've got the insight into what they're trying to do and know what they've gone through to get there and where they're trying to go. And you will be able to write that proposal with more information than is in the RFP, and there's a good chance that what's in the RFP is the only information that your competitors have. So your information turns into a competitive advantage so that you can close that sale and win the deal. All right.
Super.
All right.
Do
you want to take over?
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like
I'm rocking. Yep. And one of the questions that came up, I kind of typed out for real quick, and we're kind of running out of time here, so I'm going to keep this brief. But Bruce had another question about is Onvia a good sales tool to use in order to find out who the key decision makers are when it comes to using keywords in your market, in that instance, or anybody else? Renovations, restorations, HUD, moving, emergency, and disasters. The answer is possibly, but it depends on your sweet spot. Onvia, GovWin, which is Deltek, Centurion. We've heard this multiple times recently. Carl and I have been dialoguing on this in multiple forums lately and writing about this exact thing. Is that it really depends on what your sweet spot is, and the main issue that I have with any of these the databases is, well, there's multiple issues that I have. One is that all of these are 500,000 and up, so they're not even going to hit their radar until they're 500,000 and up. And then once it hits their radar, everybody gets to be able to see it. So while you get information that who the key decision maker is, I think there's a much better way to go about finding that information and finding about excuse me, opportunities that would be smaller than the 500,000, because a lot of us that are small businesses, that we can live off of 100,000, 500,000, under 500,000 a lot, and make a really good living with that. And the issue that I have with once it hits these is the big boys that have these systems and kind of drive these systems, actually, if you know how they work. But the big boys that have these systems, the Northrops, the SAICs, all the major integrators, major primes that have this, they are formidable as far as competitors. And if it hits their threshold, and sometimes it's $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, some of them 20 million, but in most instances, once you get to that $1 million mark or $1.5 million, you're starting to get the attention of some of the big boys, and they are formidable competitors. So that was the answer to that for Bruce, and I'll catch up with you too, Bruce. Thanks for those questions. He has to roll, I think. But so if there's any other questions, feel free to raise your hand or just let me know. So let's get back to the top needs of the GSA schedule holders and what we've addressed today. This is talking about where your contract is. We can help you in the process, helping you perform, helping you find the right people, and especially going after this and finding the right people. Our first step is to try to figure that out, because if we don't know who the right people are, you don't know who the right people are, it's impossible for you to be able to go build relationships with them. And you may not even ever know that there's opportunities, because they're only competing it between 3 GSA schedule holders, and you're not one of them. So being able to reach out to those folks and find that out. So if you know that there are 642 buyers for what you sell, and people buy from people they like, we can help you find them. We can help you be relevant to them. We can help you stay relevant to them. We can help you get ahead of the RFP process. All these little nuggets that you've heard today, these are real deal things. These are what make or break you in the federal space. And also, we can help you respond to those RFPs. I dish that off to other people all the time. Carl, especially, I dish that off to Carl anytime anybody wants help with the responding to RFPs. Unless we baked it, unless we wrote the scope, unless it's ours, we can respond to anything. But with that in mind, if you can't respond to your own RFP, for crying out loud, you ought to stop. But we can help you win in this federal space. The biggest thing right now, helping you find out who those people are. One of the components that we do, a webinar special. Every time we do this, you can save $1,000. Just mention this webinar when you call in to isiFederal, and we'll be glad to be able to provide you that discount. Key contacts who buy what you sell. Big issue. Your competitors' key contacts. We just did this in the market space. We found 700 key buyers from competitors, multiples, probably 25 different competitors that were prime competitors for this client, and we've identified them all. We can develop a strategy around that. These are often under the radar contracts that aren't hitting the Onvias and the Centurions and the GovWins. It's a breakdown of the agency spending, so you can kind of help target your process. If you're going after particular agencies, get the primes and their contacts. Again, your question, Bruce, who are those folks that are actually winning? These are the ones that are winning, and they're probably the ones that are going to be winning this year too. So developing a relationship with those primes for you and that, and then the recommended action steps, which actually serve as 90% of your federal strategy. There are components that you have to do to be able to dedicate those resources. We can help with that too and help you fill those gaps. So now is the time to pounce on the federal market, capture that ground, and help your competition vacate their place. That's our job. Our job is to help you get in and start picking off these competitors, because you can find out who they're buying, who is actually buying from your competition, exactly what Bruce asked, and be able to pick them off, both in your GSA schedule land and also the ones that are falling outside of your GSA schedule. So you hit everything. The government will buy it. It doesn't matter. Green is green. Go sell that stuff. We highly recommend that you visit captureplanning.com, prop library. You will see you'll get $100 off the prop library registration. We really cannot thank Carl enough for what he does in out there with capture planning and prop library. Again, thanks for joining us, and here's our contact information. Please feel free to email me or give me a call. Visit isiFederal. Again, visit captureplanning.com, prop library, and see what's happening. The next session is March 19th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm going to check to make sure we don't have any last-minute questions. I don't see any. Well, I do have one. Will this information be made available? Yes, it will. We will send out a link to this presentation as well as the video in case you want that. And here's another question. Let's see what this is. Okay, thanks for your help. Yes, I can send that to you, Bruce. I'll send you a copy of the presentation for that too. So without any further ado, we will let you go. Thanks for sticking with us. We ran a little bit long today. Hopefully, you found it to be different and relevant, and to be something that you weren't expecting today when you came in, because this, again, some of this stuff is really the secret sauce of what we do, and we can help you do it, obviously, better if we're working for you. So we appreciate it very much. Have a super day. Yes, Ann Robertson, you certainly can. It was very relevant. Thank you for confirming that it was relevant and it did work. So we do appreciate that, Ann, and the rest of the folks that are there. Have a phenomenal month. We really appreciate you joining us. Thanks much.